What's going on, everyone? Episode numero tres. Happy New Year. Right? Good to see you, KD.
Happy New Year. Did you have a good time, Jake? Did you have a good time?
I mean, yeah, man. New Year's is a fun one. You know, I've got 2 kids, so, you know, we don't get at it like we used to. But, you know, I can still make it till midnight, man.
The girls definitely, they're excited about staying up till midnight. I'm the one that's like, all right, cool. Have fun. Do the countdown. Have a good
You're
little,
out.
I'm
You've
done,
had a
man.
couple of tequilas. And
me and midnight aren't friends. We don't really know each other.
Well, nothing. I mean, let's
very
at
much.
this age. I mean, yeah, then you got to get up in the morning. And as you get older, man,
Have
that's
a couple
thing.
drinks. I review my goals. You know, bring it.
New Year's Eve night, you review your goals.
Oh, yeah.
Wow. All right.
Yeah, right? Because it's going into the new year, right? So I review the year, right? Spend some time with wifey. Just, hey, take it all in and say, all right, good times.
All right, I like that, man. Yeah, I've got a thing I do it every week. I review my goals every week. I've got a review because if you don't do that, you won't stick with it. And now, you know, sometimes I don't stick with it, but you know, we all do our best.
We're all humans. We're not AI yet, Jake.
That's
We're not
right.
AI yet.
Well, maybe AI can like do my goals for me. You know, like,
God, wouldn't that be the
could I just set up goals and then AI just does it for me?
Those are called agents. So yes.
Agents or agentics, which is the future. Which I think we'll tackle agentics here coming up here for everybody.
We'll get that.
So today's episode, I know some people saw today's episode and we're like, oh, let's go. I mean, some people probably like, let's go because, man, my enablement team is not doing anything for me. Other people were like, okay, this is interesting. And enablement people, don't get me wrong, enablement people, we love you. I love you. And hopefully this will get you thinking about, you know, supercharging what it means to be an enablement.
Oh, yeah. This one's going to get the people going. I got in trouble a while back at a conference with sales enablement that I've not been invited back to conference on sales enablement because I said, until y'all are willing to change your names to sales performance.
Oh, yeah, exactly. Yes.
You're going to be in a lot of trouble.
Yes.
And so now we get to unpack this a little bit.
That is right. And if you've seen some of the new messaging on Scaled coming up, we talk a lot about this in the consulting work we're doing about performance, not did I answer tickets or create a battle card. So DM question of the week.
Oh boy. So DM question of the week is a heavy one. So we'll see how we can knock this one out, right? But what are the key components of an AI-powered sales infrastructure? Where do I even start?
All right, well, I'll jump in. Look, I have been advocating the productivity use case. I really feel like a lot of what I see is people are focused on the data. Well, that gets me better data and insights. And I ask the same question. What are you going to do about it? Do you really need more data? You don't. Chances are you got all the data you need and it's okay. So to me, one of the key components is just like how your team knows how to use Google search as a part of their day-to-day from a productivity standpoint, your teams need to know how to use generative AI chat as a part of their day-to-day productivity. In the last episode, we talked about research. We talked about some other use cases. This is the new Google. So to me, it starts with that. The productivity use case is immediate gains. And I think every org has to figure out how to implement it.
Yeah, I can't remember who said the quote, so Google it, look it up, and you can tag it in the comments.
ChatGPT it, maybe.
Yeah, ChatGPT it. Don't even Google it. ChatGPT it. The quote went like this: "We are drowning in data, but starving for insights."
I think I've heard that before.
And like, it's just a classic. It's true. Like, we have all the data we could ever want, but we're starving for like insights. What does it mean?
Right.
What do I do with it? And so I think that's where, if I look at the foundationals, like you have the data, but I think you can start to use this in your infrastructure of like interpretation, insights. What are the trends, right? Like, what does it notice in patterns? Because then you can do something about it outside of it. But it does, I love the word in here, infrastructure, because they're starting to think about this is a piece of the entire.
Right. So it's the insights for you. Yeah, I agree. Like I said, I just don't know what they're going to do with it. Like, give you more data, more insights, and do your leaders even need to know how to coach to the insights, even if I give them the insights?
Got to start somewhere.
I guess. All right. So we are going to jump into today's topic. Another thing, just so you all know, if you haven't already subscribe to the channel. Make sure to also subscribe to the newsletter. Do not forget those things. You also, I think we're giving away like 5 free custom GPTs. So as a part of that, when you subscribe to the newsletter, so, you know, lots of stuff that you can do there. And obviously, I caveat that before I start talking about sales enablement, before they tune it out. So let's talk about enablement, right? And first, maybe let's define enablement a little bit, right?
So that's actually what I just pulled up because I think this is important. Right?
See, we're just here.
Literally, I just pulled it up.
That's not even in this.
It's not in any of this. I pulled it up. Enablement. Noun. The action of giving someone in the authority or means to do something, right? Or the action of making something possible, which I think is the best use case here. The enablement. The action of making something possible. Now, what's also funny about this, we'll do a screenshot of this, is, I got to show you this. Look at the use of the word enablement.
Since the 1950s, nobody used the word. Before 1950s, the word enablement did not exist.
Didn't even get used. And then for whatever reason, it's now a thing. And especially in revenue, it's the same idea. Over the last 10 years, all of a sudden, sales enablement is everywhere. So I think if we start with the action of making something possible, I think if we pause the episode right there and had a lot of enablement teams look inward and go, am I making something possible that was not possible before? It might shift a little bit of how they approach things.
Yeah, and as we get into, do you feel like, I mean, is it a CRO issue? Is it a VP? Is it an empowerment issue? Is it a, like, what do you think, is a piece, and it's probably different for every org, right? But
so, I mean, there's a lot of things actually to unpack there, because at its core, I think, let's call out the elephant in the room that I think even enablement leaders will agree with, is oftentimes sales teams do not respond to or engage well with enablement content, sessions, and trainings. I think that's a pretty well-known kind of fact out there. So you have enablement over here going like, we're doing all these things to try to make something possible. You have sellers over here going like, oh, like they don't get my world, or oh, there's another training this Friday, and they discard it. We have people on the wrong side. Now, to your point in the question, do I think some of that is leadership? Absolutely.
Yeah.
Absolutely. Like, I'm the CRO. Enablement always reports to me.
Has to, right?
Always reports to me. It doesn't report to L&D. It doesn't report to operations. It reports to me. Enablement is my right hand. So when my enablement team is doing things, my sellers know
it's going to happen. We're implementing this thing.
This is not them over here doing things, but I think you probably have even more insight into this because you go into orgs where they're like, well, we already had a battle card, or we already built this, and it didn't work, and it's not working. So I'm curious, when you look at companies you're going into with enablement, let's start with that. Where do you see the gap? Enablement, like, to be clear, enablement, I love y'all. I love the concept. I love the intention. Right,
you're building your. You have to have it.
We have to have it, but it does. It always seems like it's on different sides of the org, and it doesn't ever seem to really click.
I'll tell you, there's a couple of things. There's really two. If you wanted to simplify, and if you're any enablement org, and as we'll get into some of the ways that AI might replace parts of this too. One is change management, and what I consistently see with a lot of enablement programs. There's not the change, behavior change isn't easy, right? And I'm going to take a real world example from a project we did last year. AE Outbound Excellence, right? Company, 100-something sellers. We got to start doing outbound again for AEs. Probably sounds familiar for a lot of you. We've done trainings, but that wasn't the solve. The solve is like, whenever we came in, it's like, no, we're going to create an AE Outbound Excellence that I'm going to get every single VP and sales leader to sign that this is the new bar. This is where we're going to hold people accountable. Then we put together a program that enabled them to know best practices, etc.
Made it possible.
And then it's the reinforcement. Do you need to train people on how to use Outreach or SalesLoft again, or do you need to relaunch it like a brand new deployment to new use cases, new sequences, cadences, right? So there is this understanding of what happens in change management, and I kind of tease out number 2, which is reinforcement, that if your programs don't have a reinforcement track to where, look, we're not going to implement, we're going to do the training if it's not going to be reinforced. Because I think the stats like 85% of trainings forgotten in the first 45 days, something like that. So that's the almost without fail. And sometimes we butt heads with enablement because of this. It's like, well, we did the training. I'm like, but we didn't do the change management. You got to get senior leadership to buy in. So in that project, look, we had the CRO come in and explain the why. That's how we started the training. We didn't start it with, let's jump in. The CRO was like, hey guys, this is why we're doing this. This is why this is important. We're making a behavior shift here. The results, best month of the entire year, 44% better than their average month. Change management. If you don't have that baked in, plus reinforcement, Enablement is almost none of your enablement. Oh, last thing, frontline leadership buy-in.
There we go.
If frontline leaderships are not the ones who are, we train them first. We usually train any new initiative. We train them first, so then they can use the vernacular or understand it, like that document, and then we do the reps, right? So those are the things, and it's pretty universal. It's some flavor of that, KD, every time.
And what's interesting, you used a phrase a few times in there: buy-in. Buy-in. You have to have buy-in.
Buy-in is everything, dude.
And that to me just lets me know, again, at the leadership level, something's broken, because enablement should only be working on things that the team has already bought in to want to fix. And that also happens all the time. Is like the reps are struggling with outbound, and enablement builds a battle card for
training. Yeah, they built a new training.
We have a training on a persona. It's like, no, we can't book meetings outbound. We need help there. Whereas what's coming from enablement are well known to my team. They're like, we need to get better at this thing. This isn't about buy-in. It's like, we're broken here. Enablement's going to help me.
Yeah, that's a whole other sales is the only part of an organization that thinks to solve a change management, you do a half-day training. Like, the solve, like, hey, our accounting practices are broken. Let's send Johnny the controller to a 3-hour training on Gap. Right? Like, what other part of the org thinks, okay, we have a foundational issue. What we need to do is bring in Jake Dunlap for $10,000 for a day. Now, don't get me wrong, training has its place. Foundational pieces, you're trying to get to 201, 301, 100%. Training is phenomenal for that. But I think that's it too, is enablement is asked to, is not given the reins at time to do the reinforcement and the error cover from up top. So
then I guess
that's my enablement.
To the question, does AI replace sales enablement?
Ooh, it's interesting. All right, I'll give a couple takes, and I'm going to toss it back over to you. Here's what I believe. I believe an enablement team today, again, I'm going to try to give a fast fact here. These are Jake's facts, which means they're 80% right 100% of the time. So 5 to 1, maybe. For every 5 enablement people, I can have 1, maybe. Okay. Maybe 4 or 3. Let me just tell you why. Okay, if you've already taken the time to create a Zendesk battle card, and you've already taken the time, you built a CFO buyer persona, I can now build 55 permutations of those two mashed together in seconds, where I can be like, hey, I've got somebody in this industry, here's the CFO, here's our battle card, because ChatGPT can create a custom GPT for scenario planning. We've got a bunch of them. And I can say, hey, here's my exact situation. It already knows who the persona is, etc. Create a quick talk track for me. So the ability to hyper customize enablement-based content to specific deals and scenarios, they're infinite. It's infinite.
Yep.
And so that is where I say I think the right enablement team that is empowered to create custom GPTs around specific use cases and can just crank content at an unbelievable level. And then I've been messing around with we use Google Suite Gemini. And I'm still early in my phase, but man, it's getting pretty good at creating slides. It's getting better. It's getting better at creating supplementary docs. So again, just the amount of high quality content that I can crank now that is so customized, it's unfathomable a year ago.
I think that's the first major call out is if your enablement team is only creating content, then yes. Absolutely.
Yeah, good call.
Absolutely.
Yeah, good call.
If you are a content enablement team, you're making battle cards, you're making slides, you're making handouts, yes is the answer, right? That is actually very easy to replace, I feel like, if all you're providing is content. If you're providing context, that's the next level where AI is not there yet, where you know what the best of the best do. AI doesn't know who your best sellers are. You should in enablement. In fact, this one almost always, it's, enablement. Let me talk to you real quick, zoom in. I talk to enablement people all the time. One of the first questions I ask them is, how closely are you attached to the top performer? How well do you know the top performer? How well do you know what they do, what they say, how they follow up, what their process is? 90% of the time, nothing.
Right.
There's no connection. They don't have any connection to what the top performers do. And then that's part of where I think the trust breaks sometimes with the org, is they feel like there's that disconnect. So if you're enablement only doing content, you're in trouble. If you have context, if you know what the best of the best do, then you can actually feed it.
That would allow you to create a better custom GPT as well too. Yeah, if you're in enablement right now and you don't know how to create a custom GPT, you are, again, like marketers have already, a lot of marketers have figured this out. A lot of marketers have already realized, hey, I can program this thing with giving it 30 different blog posts, and it can now help me to, either edit my content for tone or help to start the content creation. So that to me is one of the most important applications for enablement. Enablement, you need to become masters at creating custom GPTs.
Because it's usable. This is the other part with so much with enablement, is it's not usable. Reps don't use the battle card. I cannot.
Right, exactly.
I cannot think of the last time a rep is like, wait a minute, let me pull up the Enterprise Eddie battle card and figure something out.
Oh God, it's
usable.
so sad, but so true.
Whereas a GPT is usable. I can go in and I can say, hey, I have a call coming up with it's actionable. Whereas again, with enablement, too often it is just one-sided.
That's right.
The rep receives, but they can't use it. And custom GPTs, oh man, like this should be a gold mine.
And it's not technical. I think for a lot of you listening, whether you're a sales leader or revenue leader and you're like, man, Jake, this makes sense. You don't need to be technical. You just need, again, you need to understand like what goes into it. And it's the ability to upload these things. And again, just to kind of play off of what you said, Kevin, I remember I had a conversation about a year ago with a sales leader, and I asked her, I said, because we were talking about this, the ability to access your content in a usable way. And I said, you use Seismic or HighSpot or these tools. I go, when's the last time you checked the usage?
Oh, don't do it.
She goes,
don't do it.
She literally goes, I'm terrified. I'm like, wait, so you've invested, Seismic is not a cheap tool, neither is HighSpot or insert whatever CMS you use, and SharePoint, and you are too scared to look at the usage metrics. This is a chance for enablement to be the hero, right? Like enablement, if you can realize that you can take parts of your playbook, and now I've got competitive deal winner custom GPT that is customized to these use cases. It knows our personas, it knows our battle cards, and the reps can interact with it. You got to bring this content to life.
Bring it to where they are. Embed it into Slack. Make the custom GPT. Have it bookmarked of like, you made all this content. Now feed that in. And then to your earlier point, reinforcement. How could enablement be using AI to reinforce the things that they are teaching?
Yeah, talk about it, man.
Right. So if you think about, most trainings, you show up, the reps sit there for an hour, and they're fully focused, by the way.
100%. They're not on email.
They are
virtual.
Dialed in.
That's
they
right.
are just in it.
That's right. Slack is off. Phones in their pocket.
Cameras always on. Do not disturb, engage. Like they're engaged.
Yes, 100%.
But then for some reason, they just don't remember everything. Man. It's just weird.
Yeah.
Whereas if after that training, a quiz GPT went out asking everyone 5 to 6 questions of the training, and they can't move forward until they've passed it. Well, now you've got some reinforcement. And then if you created a coaching bot to reinforce that, where it's like, okay, the objection for the CFO is XYZ, how would you handle it? And they're typing it and they have to send in. Right?
Send it to your sales leader.
Send it to your sales leader when it's done. Now you have the reinforcement. And then you could, upload your most recent call transcript to go, like all this reinforcement, that enablement can't do right now because one, they're disconnected, but two, they don't have the resources to do it. Now that training sticks, and you can actually say, wow, performance did go up. Call scores were this 3 weeks ago. Now they're this. The closed lost reasons for pricing made up 40% of our deals last quarter. They made 26% of our deals this quarter because we focused on the pricing objection and how to handle it and all that. The reinforcement with quiz bots, one-pagers, coaching bots, all of that is just, it should be a gold mine.
And I think for a lot of you too, like you don't literally ChatGPT, my friends, can do all of this. I think there's a lot of people selling really point-based Gen AI solutions right now that are interesting, but again, the future are these little agents, right, that are very good. And what we found too, because we've built a bunch of these, right, is salespeople like a box. They want something to push. And if this one says competitive deal winner versus like, my value prop, it's like, no. And then this one does this other thing about discovery prep. And we found that like these very use case based ones that you can program, and obviously we've got a suite of them, so go check them out. If you're like, Jake, I'd love to get these or customized, you can go check out Journey and the things that we're doing there. In the show notes, you definitely should, because then you can kind of cheat and get ahead and look like a hero. But I do feel like this is something, I feel like you're going to have to learn how to build custom GPTs if you're in enablement. I just don't really see how you could really be successful if you don't understand how to bring to life the content or the reinforcement plan.
Yeah. I mean, I'm a prime example, I'll say in this. I have always had enablement teams. Always. I've always had them. They've always report to me. And at my company right now, I don't have one. I don't have anyone in enablement yet. It's a hire that I want to make. But in the meantime, I enrolled all my revenue leaders in the AI course.
They're creating their own.
And they're creating their own. Y'all, I had a manager, shout out Guller. I see you, my dude. Guller went through one of those last 2 weeks ago, the module.
Yeah.
Went through it, ended it, took our call scorecard, and built a call scorecard GPT that you could upload the transcript into, and then it spits out the feedback and coaching that a manager would give. He built it in like 2.5 hours.
Yeah.
And now we have a GPT that it gets used across the entire org. We actually linked it into our one-on-one docs now, where it's in the one-on-one doc to then add the transcript in to go through
Love
this.
it.
That would have been an entire enablement person's job.
That's right.
To review these calls and try to score.
Or you trying to multiply yourself to listen to 50, to calls. You talked about this in the last episode around this idea of like that Gen AI is giving you the insights. So you as a sales manager to be more durable and have more longevity, you can just scale that.
Right. And so now when we do a battle card, we take trainings, right? Because I do a lot of training still for my team, right? That's the other thing. Is like I'm leading trainings, not enablement. So I lead. We record it. What do you think we do with that recording, Jake?
Put it right in there.
Put it right in. So now I got a summary, I got a checklist, and I got a couple slides built off of this, right? These are all things that enablement used to do. And so I think it's a prime opportunity for maybe orgs that don't have enablement to start to get some of
or
those use
thin,
cases
right?
out.
The thin ones, right?
Just
The ones
one.
that are
like
4 people for 100 reps.
my last one, I had one for a while, Dana, and she was phenomenal. I had one. Dana and I used to went deep in AI on this. We had one. That was it for an org, right? 3 different orgs. It was just Dana for a while. And then Mac joined her, and it was great. But it's like, that's also not enough. And I think sometimes enablement's drowning. They have too many things to do, and they don't have the resources to do it. But that reinforcement, I think, is key. And I'll throw this out there. This will help you, enablement, to know what your best do. Because maybe you don't know. Maybe in enablement you don't know. Go take the best seller.
Yeah, I love that.
Get their transcripts, interview them, listen to all those calls, and now you have the cheat sheet of
That's right.
This, we call it scaling greatness. So every quarter I assign my managers a scaling greatness exercise where we identify the key metrics, who's the best at that metric, and then it's assigned to you. And you got to go tell me, why does Julia have the highest ACV? Why does Jake have the highest lead to client? Why does Nick have the highest approval rate? You got to go find it. We're literally going to do our first AI enhanced scaling greatness exercise in about a week. We're in Q1 now, and I'm so excited to see what we learn. So excited.
And the cool part is again, it kind of gets you to step 1 faster if you're in enablement. Like instead of having, it can say, hey, well, triangulating, this is kind of it, and then you can really go deep. And with so much of this, you can get that content now to V3, whereas before you would have spent 2 hours creating a V1. Now I can spend 2 hours creating V3.
Oh, and actually, that's a big one we haven't talked about is updating. That's also where enablement falls off sometimes. Faster. Is they built the playbook in 2019,
exactly.
And it's been collecting digital dust. Where now, quick updates. People ask me all the time how often I update our playbooks, or update our checklist. And I was like, whenever we learn something new,
right?
Learn something new, we update the playbook, but then we do a training on it, and a coaching on it.
That's right.
And a checklist on it, and reinforcement on it. And this is a place where I feel like this should be empowering enablement. And as much as we talk about sales leaders not seeming to leverage this, I haven't seen anything out there from enablement. I'm not seeing enablement posts out there how they're leveraging, AI to make sellers better. I'm not seeing that anywhere.
This is the cheat code for you enablement leaders.
It should be.
We literally have given you, again, 2 things that you can do almost immediately, right? Around this idea of up-leveling your reinforcement, building out custom GPTs for these use cases to amplify yourself. So, I think my thought is, look, I don't think it's going to replace sales enablement. What I will say is it's going to allow us to do a lot more faster and with a higher quality, which is usually the trade-off with tech, right? If we do more of something, it usually then quality degrades, right? Generative AI kind of breaks that, where I can actually do more things and the quality goes up. So if you're in enablement, I think if you are working to where your skill is creating content, so you brought this up. Yeah, I think that there's some of you that will be replaced, and I'm definitely not paying you $1.30, or $1.25 to just go make a PowerPoint that Jim and I can get 80% of the way there on day one. But I do feel like there's actually a really big need for it, and I think kind of my final thought is, and you touched on this, is, and one thing I maybe didn't mention in the beginning of the episode is the other thing with enablement is, can I tie this project, this thing, to a revenue metric, right? And you mentioned this a couple of times, performance. So the more enablement you are focused on, like that project that I mentioned, you better believe I talked to the head of RevOps. I said, set up the report, make sure we have the report to track this, so afterwards I can prove return on investment. And so if you can continue to prove ROI in your work, you can continue to make sure that you are aligning to the needs and you're being more dynamic, you're going to be so far ahead. You're going to be worth 250, 350.
Little secret, my enablement orgs are always tied to a metric. Part of their comp plan is attached to a metric every quarter. We pick a metric, and they're responsible for helping improve it. Now, so am I.
Of course.
My managers, right back to that buy-in, but they're literally part of their comp plan is attached to performance. This is, when I got in trouble at the conference, I brought this up. They're like, "That's not our responsibility." And so that's when I snapped back.
Yeah.
And,
well, then what is your
got
responsibility?
sassy a little bit on stage. I've grown up, but I probably still would have gotten just as sassy now.
Yeah.
But I was like, no, that is your job to make possible. Is the definition of enablement.
Right.
What are we trying to make possible in sales? Revenue. That is what we are trying to do. And so if your orgs aren't getting better, they need to be. Enablement, y'all, this should be your cheat code. This should be your cheat code to make better content, more content, reinforce the content, see if the content is sticking, and then be able to bring all that together. Like, if you're only doing content, you're in trouble. But if you enable this, and y'all, let AI help you. If you don't know how to build a custom GPT, join the community, get in here, sign up for this stuff, but ask AI to help you. Try asking, hey, I want to build a custom GPT that will help me do X, Y, and Z. What would be some good prompts? It will tell you how to build itself. This is why this technology is so wild.
So great.
It's building itself. So I hope more enablement people listen to this. I hope they take in the wow, this should be a good thing for me. Not to be afraid of it. This should be a good thing if you do it.
That's it. I feel like RevOps, I think we got an episode.
We're coming for you next.
We got an episode
We're coming
for you next. We've picked. We've got enough for sales leaders. So, look, man. Hopefully, anyone listening, again, if you're in sales, you can be doing this stuff for yourself, sales leadership, etc. So, I don't think we're saying it's going to replace people, but if your skill sets are a certain skill set and not more big picture thinking, creative, cleverness, we've talked about this. It's going to be tough. So, KD. Another great episode in the books.
Hell yeah, my man.
All right, man. Happy New Year, everybody. Thank you for tuning in. If you're on YouTube or listening, if you're on the podcast, make sure to subscribe. Subscribe to the newsletter, some of the other things we've got in the show notes. And we'll see you on the next episode.
Hell yeah. Appreciate you.